that in the Torah we find that there are certain people that they have to be respected. So one of them is one of the Aseres HaDibros, one of the 10 Commandments, Kabidus Avicha V'Semecha. It's a commandment to respect your parents. Another one is teacher. A person has a teacher who teaches them Torah. It's a commandment to respect your teacher of Torah. There's another commandment in the Torah, respect your elders. If there's somebody that's an elderly person, some say at age 60, 70, there's a certain degree of respect you have to have for them. And a few other examples. Okay, so these are special people. What about anybody else? So everybody else doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want. Everybody else, of course, you also have to respect. And that's what the Mishnah is saying. Not only you should have respect for every other person, even if they're not parent and they're not a teacher and they're not a Kohen and they're not a great rabbi and they're not a tzaddik, anybody. In fact, the honor and the respect that you should give to another person should be precious to you like your own. And I think this is not only telling us how strong it should be, it's also helping us make that judgment. Sometimes you say something or you do something and somebody would say to you, what did you do that wasn't nice? And they'll say, no, I wouldn't care. I don't care. I'm sure it's nothing. It's no big deal. One of the ways to know very often if it's really no big deal is to stop and think for a second, what if somebody would do this to me? Somebody would scream at me. Somebody would say these words to me in public. Somebody would do what I'm doing right now, I'm sure would bother me. And then you realize it's wrong. So first of all, Mishnah is saying the honor you should give to another person should be as precious. Whatever you wouldn't have liked to be done to you, this is something that you shouldn't do to someone else in terms of honor and respect. Then we have another quote. It's number 2 on the list. And this quote is also from Pirkei Avos, but from a later chapter. But it's related, so I put it here under this category. Ezel mechubad, who is honored, is entitled to really be honored, and who will be honored, hamechabed abriyos, the one who honors others. What does that mean? Unfortunately, we find very often that people who are in a position of power, so because they're in a position of power, they're ahead of something or other, they expect people to honor them and to be respectful to them more than the average because they have a position where they're superior, which is true. But how do they reinforce it? Usually by intimidation. They intimidate you and they really make you feel that you should be afraid of them. And ultimately, a very strange thing happens. You might outwardly be very respectful, but inside you don't respect this person. It looks like but you're really not, because you don't respect such a person. Who are the people that we respect? Those who respect others, they get true respect from people. So in other words, it's the opposite of what you would think, that the more macho you come out and the more you scream louder and you pound on the table, and when people see you walk in the room, they're trembling because you walked in the room. But that's not respect. They might be intimidated by you. They might be afraid of you because you could hurt them in one way or another, but not true respect. True respect is when you respect others, you'll see that people will respect you. And I don't think we need to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. I think everyone sees this in daily life. Now, there's something that we had in the Chumash, in the Parsha, not long ago, and that was the story with Yehuda and Tamar, the woman that he lived with, and he had a child. She was actually initially his daughter-in-law, and then, I'm sure you did the Parsha and you learned all about it, why he was allowed to do what he did, but they didn't realize that this was the woman, and therefore he was about to judge her that she has to be put to death because she violated one of the commandments of adultery, or similar to adultery. So what happened was that the Gemara says, she said to Yehuda, please, almost like pleading with him, admit what you did. Which means the Gemara says she was ready to allow herself to be thrown into the furnace and not embarrass him in public. So something which unfortunately in today's world, in today's day and age, is people are very relaxed with it, and very easy with it, and it's done almost all the time, is embarrassing another person, and especially embarrassing another person in public. And embarrassing doesn't mean, according to my standards, it means according to the person's standards. If you say something to a person and their face goes white or red because they are humiliated by what you said or what you did, this is called embarrassing. And that's something which is very severe in Torah. In fact, we have another quote about embarrassing someone in public, which is number 5. Number 5 reads, Hamal ben pnei chaver berabim, embarrassing someone in public, ki'ilu shefer dam, it's compared to murder. Literally, the reason is because when a person gets humiliated, their face changes colors, which means that their blood drains. The blood draining is a little bit like someone whose life is being taken away from him. So it's just sort of, it looks like that. But on a deeper level, it means that you really destroy something in the person. You destroy their confidence, you destroy their feeling of self-worth and self-esteem. And we all know that these are things that could destroy a person for life. So embarrassing someone in public is something which is extremely negative in Torah. And I guess the worst thing that could be said about anything is said about embarrassing someone in public. And that's number 7 on the page. He who embarrasses someone in public has no share in the world to come. Like the worst sort of public punishment, consequence could be, sometimes the consequences you have to pay a fine, sometimes the consequence the person goes through some suffering, sometimes even God forbid a person passes from the world, but he goes to the world to come. But a consequence that you lose your share in the world to come, that's like the worst, that's eternal. Now, it is true that the Mefarshim, commentators on this Gemara explain, on this Mishnah explain, it doesn't mean that somebody does it one time, they lose their share in the world to come. It means that somebody makes a habit of this, which very often people do that. They'll make a joke about someone, and everybody's going to laugh and having a great time. And what they've done, they've embarrassed someone in public. And by the way, sometimes the person who's embarrassed could be laughing along with you because that's the best way to play the game, but internally they're really very hurt. So this is something which it says, and similar to that is number 8. Even not in the person's face, but let me get there. First, these are 3 statements about embarrassing someone in public. And I guess sometimes you can talk disrespectful about a person, but there's nobody else around. There's a certain degree of humiliation, but it's not the same. But when there are other people around and they're observing this, it's something very, very damaging. There's an interesting, no, I'll get to that soon. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, let's go to number 4 on the list. Lo Sonu. Lo Sonu is a pasuk in Chumash, and it happens to be one of the 365 commandments, which means it's a primary commandment in the Torah. And what does it mean? Do not taunt, which means you're not allowed to say something to another person that's hurting their feelings. I'm not talking about embarrassing now. Anything which is hurting their feelings. And the Torah says that this is something which is also very, very damaging. And I would say the thing about embarrassing in public or hurting someone's feelings, they have something in common. And then the thing in common is, it's not a physical injury. If somebody, chas v'shalom, gets hit with a stick, there's a black and blue mark, something has to wear a cast, something happens. Here you look at the person, they're the same person, nothing changed, but inside, very deep damage was done. So in Yiddish is an interesting expression. I'll first say it in Yiddish, then I'll translate it. In Yiddish, it goes like this: a patch vergeht, a word besteht. It's a play on words. And it means a slap goes away, but words will always stay. In other words, if you slap somebody on the face, what you're going to see is a mark on the face, 5 fingers. The pain will last maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. After that, the physical pain is gone, the marks on the face are gone, and it's over. When you say something hurtful to another person, those words could stay inside and be there for many years, sometimes for a lifetime. Anyone who studies psychology, knows anything about psychology, will know that sometimes there are people that are struggling with something because of some statement that a person made, whether it was a parent or a teacher or a friend, and they said something, and that's sort of eating away at them years and years, and they have to do all sorts of therapy to get it out of their system. So therefore, in America, there's a song, kids would sing the song, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never harm me. I don't want to say the second half, but whoever is an American who grew up with that song knows what it is. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never harm me. It's not true. Names do harm, and they do more harm than sticks and stones. Sticks and stones are temporary. You go to a doctor, you do some procedure, and you can fix it. Inside, internally, that doesn't get fixed so fast. And therefore, the Torah warns us very much against this idea of chas v'shalom, doing something which is disrespectful to another person. And then we have quote number 6 on the page. This is a very famous quote, because they didn't honor one another. Anyone know where that's from?
Rabbi Akiva.
Righto. Yes. There's a story with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is considered one of the greatest sages that ever lived. And he was, he was a sage that he lived to the age of 120, like Moshe Rabbeinu, because he had a parallel in a certain way to Moshe Rabbeinu. And he had 24,000 students. And a plague broke out. And the students unfortunately died. And thousands of students died in the same time period. The time period was between Pesach and Shavuos. And that's why those 6 weeks, we don't do weddings, there are different customs, but it's a time of mourning, because this was not an individual tragedy, it was a tragedy for the whole Jewish nation. So the Gemara always makes a statement that if anything like that happens, especially something so huge, there's got to be a spiritual reason why it happened. Something went wrong. The Gemara says, yes, it says they didn't honor one another, but it means they really didn't have the proper respect for one another. Of course, it seems shocking if they were Torah scholars, if they were students of Rabbi Akiva, they wouldn't have respect for one another. So the answer, of course, is it doesn't mean that they were throwing bottles and chairs at each other. It means that the kind of respect that was expected of people, of their standards, of where they were, they should have been more than what they did. And for where they were and who they were, the way they acted was considered disrespectful. But still, how could you explain it? So, of course, a lot of commentary on this. What happened? What were they thinking? One of the ways that's explained, specifically in Chassidus, is that amongst 24,000 students, they all had one teacher, Rabbi Akiva, but each one had like their sort of path, the way they connected to him, what they were passionate about. And each one felt excited about what they were doing. And they felt that this was the best way to go about it. And as a result of that, each one tried to convince the other to do it their way. We always say this in class, different strokes for different folks. They didn't recognize that totally. They felt this is the best way, and let me get everybody else to do it my way. And as a result of that, they didn't have the proper respect. The fact that you want to explain to another person how your path or your way is better, that's fine. People have discussions, people have disagreements. But if it leads to disrespecting the other person as a result of it, then you've gone too far. And that's what happened. They were passionate about what they were doing in a good way. They were passionate about the way they studied Torah, the way they observed mitzvahs, each one. And each one, because they loved their fellow Jew, that's, by the way, another part of the question. Rabbi Akiva is the author of the famous quote that Ahavas Yisrael is a basic cardinal principle of Torah, love for a fellow Jew. So how could it be that his students, who are so passionate about love for a fellow Jew, should end up with this? So the answer is they did it out of love. And out of love, each one wanted to sort of give the other student the privilege of knowing what's the best way to do things. And that's fine. But when it leads to a place of losing respect for another, either through speech or through action, that means you've gone too far. It should not get in the way of respecting one another. There's no better place to practice this than in a dorm. In the school, in a dorm where a lot of people are together. And that's the place where each person has the challenge of respecting the other person's space and so on. Got it? Any questions? If you don't want to embarrass me by asking me a question, it's not a problem. I'm here for that purpose. You can ask questions. Okay, we'll turn the page. We'll go to page 11. So page 11 is about a character trait that's considered one of the most destructive, negative character traits that exist. And yet, unfortunately, it is also quite common. And that is anger. Kas, that's the Hebrew word for anger, is kas. Why are we doing this? Because in this Mishnah, there's another part where it says, if you want to go back to the Mishnah and see inside, this is Mishnah 10. It says, Al tehi noach lichos, which means don't be easily angered. Person shouldn't be loose with their temper. In America, there's an expression, they have a short fuse, which means if anything is not the way I want it to be, they lose their temper and they do things which are destructive, out of control. So let's learn a little bit about anger. And we'll go over some of the statements, and probably we'll have to do this again tomorrow or next time we have the class. What is it that it says about anger? So first of all, on top of the page is probably the most, I would say, the harshest statement about anger. Now that anger is negative, we all understand. That anger is destructive, we all understand. Many people lost their jobs because they lost their temper. Many people destroyed relationships because they lost their temper. Many people lost opportunities because they lost their temper. So that's understood. But in context of Torah, this is probably one of the worst, or the worst statement could be said. Kol hakoyes, whoever loses their temper, ki'ilu oved avodah zarah. It's as if they're worshiping idols. What's the connection? So to really fully understand this, I made copies of a chapter in Tanya, not the whole thing, just a part of a page where it talks about and explains it. However, the copies that I made were only made in the world of thought. They were never made in the world of action. So I have the master copy, but not the copies. And therefore, I will tell you now orally what it says. And the next time we have this class, we'll learn it inside. Of course, the question is, why would losing the temper be, talk to the person who lost his temper, do you believe in God? Of course I believe in God. You worship idols? Yeah, in your mind, idols. And yet, it says here that if they get angry, they lose their temper, it's as if they're worshiping idols. So the answer is, when we talk about idol worship or something which is heresy, the opposite of belief in God, there's a mistake. There are two things that are considered belief in God, two major things, not just one. One is to believe in the existence of God. In other words, a person who says that they're an atheist and they don't believe that God exists, they don't believe God created the world, that's a person that doesn't believe in the existence of God. And that person is violating the first commandment of the 10 commandments, where it says, I am God, your God that took you out of Egypt, which means know that I am a God, that I created the world and I'm in charge. And a person who doesn't believe in the existence of God, that's like idol worship. It means I'm worshiping someone else and not worshiping. I don't recognize Hashem. Then there's another pasuk, which we all say. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, God our God, God is one. This means another thing, that God is one, meaning to say that nothing in the world is really independent of Hashem. Everything that exists and everything that is functioning in this universe is only because of Hashem. Sorry. Spam risk. Okay. Turning you off. Thank you. Okay. So everything that happens is from Hashem. That means everything in essence is extension of Hashem, is relying on Hashem, is dependent on Hashem. There's really nothing in the world that's truly has its own independent identity. This is something you learn about a lot more in Chassidus. So it means if somebody would get up and make a statement, I believe that God exists, but I also believe that other things exist besides God, outside of God, independent of God. That's heresy. They're not violating the commandment to believe in the existence of God, but they're violating the commandment to believe in the oneness of God. Got it? Got the difference? Okay. So again, if a person would get up and make that statement, they're clearly declaring that they don't believe in God the way you're supposed to. And when we say they believe in idol worship, is because that's really what a lot of the idol worship is all about. People think that those who worshiped idols didn't believe in God. It's not true. Those who worship idols, they believed in God, but they believe that God created other gods. Now they're independently doing whatever they want, and they're on their own, because God is too busy with other things. And therefore, they would say the sun, those who worship the sun said God created the sun. Now the sun has the power to do things on its own. And the moon has intelligence to do things on its own. And the constellations have intelligence to do their thing. And angels have certain intelligence to do what they want to do. God created forces to do things, and he is the way, and they're independent. So that's why it's called Avodah Zarah. That's idol worship. Because idol worship also means I believe in God as the original, but I believe that there are other forces that have the power to do things independent of Hashem. Got it? So again, if a person would get up and say, I believe that, we know that goes against Avodah. That's like Avodah Zarah. What if a person doesn't say it, but in English there's an expression, I'm sure it's in every language, and that is actions speak louder than words. Which means I have to act a certain way, I'm making a statement. So if a person loses their temper, in a way they're making a statement that I don't believe that this had anything to do with God. I believe that the reason why this happens is because I'm a victim of nature, or I'm a victim of somebody else's bad mood, and therefore they hit me or they hurt me. So basically, I'm blaming the person. I'm not recognizing that this is all from Hashem. So in a way, I am acting in a way which is like making a statement that things in the world or nature is independent of Hashem. So let's say somebody, chas v'shalom, loses their house because of a flood, or loses their house because of a volcano, or an earth. But in reality, it's not the earthquake, it's not the volcano, it's not the other things that happen. It's Hashem chose to do it for whatever reason known to him. And if a person loses their temper when something happens, even things that I do myself, I did something, I made a mistake, and I lose my temper, I'm getting all angry and losing it. I mean, I don't recognize that Hashem is really in charge. In a certain way, I'm saying that I and other people or other things around me have independent power. And therefore, a person loses their temper, it's in a sense like Avodah Zarah. And the Alter Rebbe will explain, so what does it mean that the person who did something bad to me doesn't get punished? I said, no, that person, what they did was because they free choice. And they're going to get punished for making the bad choice. But the fact that I ended up getting this particular loss, I lost money or something else, that's from Hashem. And therefore, if I say no, it's not from Hashem, Hashem has nothing to do with it. This is because of this reason or that reason, it's a form of Avodah Zarah. I always wondered about it because even that, ask any person that gets angry, if they're a religious Jew, and ask them, you don't believe in Hashem anymore? They'll look at you like you're off the wall. Of course I believe in God. But that's what it says. So I looked one time, I noticed that the words in the Alter Rebbe were really amazing. It doesn't say they don't believe in God. It says, as the moment when the person loses their temper, at that moment, his belief in Hashem has sort of left him. In other words, at that moment, my belief in Hashem is not there in a conscious way. I lost it. And it's interesting because when a person loses their temper, very often people do things that don't make any sense. They break things, they scream, they shout, they'll break windows, throw shoes. How does that help? And the answer is it's just a destructive energy. And the only thing that calms them down is to destroy, break, knock, hack. They might even hurt themselves as a result. It doesn't make any sense. How does that help anything? And the answer is it doesn't. It's just an out of control emotion. So this out of control emotion comes from not recognizing that really everything's from Hashem, and therefore there's a purpose and there's a meaning to it. And then I would handle it in a much more contained way. I know people that wrote to the Rebbe about anger, that they have an issue with losing their temper. And the Rebbe wrote them they should learn this part of Tanya and try to learn it by heart. And when they feel the temper rising, like everybody knows, like about a few seconds before the volcano is about to erupt, the Rebbe says, start in your head reviewing what it says in Tanya, and it'll help you calm things down. So, Mishram, tomorrow, we'll do that. We'll do this part of Tanya.
Which chapter is?
What?
Which chapter is?
It's chapter 25. Today is day 25 in Tevis. It's chapter 25 in the 4th volume of Tanya, Igeret HaKodesh. Number 2, another statement in Gemara. You know, it's very interesting. Why I wanted to tell you the story. In Gemara, it says that sometimes a person could be angry, not because they don't believe in God, but it's a certain approach in education. Like a teacher will be angry at a student because he wants them to get to do the right thing, or be angry, just harshness. In English, they call it tough love. You know, I love my child, but I believe that the only way to get him to do what's right is by being tough. So they call it tough love. You know, but some people, they also love, but their love comes in a gentle way, in a softer way. So one of the differences between Hillel and Shammai was Hillel was a easygoing, more softer. He was chesed. Shammai was gevura. So the Gemara tells a story with anger that there was everyone spoke about Hillel, that he's amazing in terms of his, calmness, and he doesn't get angry. So one person said to another person, I bet you 400 shkolim, a lot of money in those days, that I could make him angry. So he said, okay, I bet you won't make him angry, I'm telling you. Okay, leave it up to me. The Gemara does a story in Gemara. Comes Friday afternoon, and he hears water running, so obviously Hillel is getting ready to bathe before Shabbos. And he starts pounding on the door, emergency. So Hillel gets dressed, goes down, opens the door. Yes, my son, what is it? So I wanted to know, why do the people in Africa have flat feet? That's the emergency, Erev Shabbos, right before candle lighting. So he said, the reason is, and he gave him a reason. Okay, he left disappointed. Comes back half an hour later, pounding on the table. Again, he interrupts his preparations, goes to the door, and he comes to him and he says, how come this tribe in India, their babies are born and their heads are a certain way, certain shape? So he explains to them that's because of the way the women who help give birth to the children, the way they're holding the baby, they're not doing it right, and that's why it's that thing. And the third question and the fourth question, I don't remember the details, but all along the same line. Why this tribe is like that and the other tribe is like nothing relevant whatsoever. At the end, he says, there should never be any more people like you. So again, he's calm and says, why are you saying that, my son? Says, because of you, I just lost 400 ruble, or whatever amount of money it is. So he said, you could lose all the money in the world, but I'm not going to lose my temper. So the Gemara shows that, we're not talking about ordinary people. This is the same story with the famous story with Hillel and Shammai, where the person came and said, I want to convert, but teach me the whole Torah on 1 foot. And he said, goodbye. Then he came to Hillel and said, sure, I'll teach you the whole Torah on 1 foot. Don't do to others what you wouldn't want to do to you. That's the whole Torah, and all the rest is commentary. So basically, we have it. Every person has it. It's in the power to deal with things in a soft way, in a gentle way, and to realize that anger is a negative character trait. But how do you control it if you have anger? So I'll give you the secret next time. If you come to class, I'll give you the secret. That was a joke, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
I learned that, for example, in Rosh Hashanah, that it's very, very, very important that you don't lose your temper, because like the moment that you feel like you're gonna get angry and
Explode.
shout, like a very big bracha is supposed to come, and like the Satan is like trying to get you angry,
So you should
so
lose
you
it.
lose it. That's kind of like every day, or is
First time I hear it, I don't know.
uh,
I never heard it.
but once I heard that, I
Believing? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, once I heard that, like I got conscious of like how big it is.
And it helps you stop.
Yeah,
Sure.
makes sense. Well,
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
You can ask the question. I'm not sure I know the answer.